for tuning in to the CyberHub and CISO Talk podcast, Veteran November series that honors the brave men and women who serve this nation by sharing their stories of service. Each year, for the entire month of November, we publish a daily podcast about these veterans. Buckle up and get ready for Veteran November. And now your host, James Azar.
Well, everyone, welcome to another great episode of Veteran November. I have a very special guest with me, a very, very special human being who, from the moment I landed in Atlanta, just really was instrumental in bridging and bringing the community in to help me assimilate and integrate into the Georgia community. Mr. Wes Knight, he's used to be the CISO over for the Georgia Department of Revenue, where he would gladly secure to make sure that your tax money went where it's supposed to go.
Right. And that your data stayed where it was supposed to stay.
Right. And that your data stayed where it was supposed to stay. And now you're the CISO over at Needling Worldwide. Thank you for being here, Wes. How's it going?
Great. I'm glad to be here, man. It's good talking to you.
It's great having you on the show, folks. We publish these Veteran November episodes every single day for the month of November, Monday through Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you tune in. A simple thank you in the comments is really all you can write to show appreciation for these brave men and women who were part of the show and did so much for our nation. I'm going to guess, and I'm going to ask you a question I already know the answer to, right? But Wes, what part of the military did you serve in, and what did you do in the service?
Oh, gee. Yeah, whoops, wrong shoulder. 82nd Airborne. I led a small team. We kind of did whatever they told us to do. So, but it was a great team, great organization, all American. What the AA stands for, not Alcohol Anonymous, like the guys over in 101st will tell you it stands for. So,
and how long were you enlisted for, Wes?
Just a couple of years.
Okay.
73, 75, that time range. And actually, I wasn't enlisted; I was an officer. But so I did little to nothing. I was an officer.
So you essentially bossed everyone around and then ate good chow.
Yeah. We spent most of our time out in the woods, and so the chow was what you made of it, I guess is the best way to put that. This was back before MREs and all that kind of stuff. We're talking C's and what you could catch. So
I think that's what makes man, right? We're hunters and gatherers.
Yeah.
If you're in the woods, you're hunting, you're gathering, you're eating. You don't hunt, you don't gather, you starve to death.
That's right.
MREs are kind of, we go back 100 years. What's MREs, right? Like, I think a soldier 100 years ago would look at us and go, "You guys have MREs? What?"
Right.
They go, "We went to battle. Then at night we had to go hunt to get food for everyone.
That's right.
We wanted to get protein in people."
That's right. When I was at Georgia State, I was in ROTC at Georgia State, and I leaned onto a teacher's desk to ask her a question, and my dog tag swung out, and it had a P38 on it, the little can opener.
Uh-huh.
And she said, "What is that?" And I said, "It's my dog tags." And she said, "No, what's that?" And I said, "Oh, it's P38. It's a can opener." She said, "Why do you wear a can opener around your neck?" It's like, why don't you? It's just you need them. You got to have them. So,
yeah, you live off of cans. You got to have a can opener to open them.
That's right.
But why did you enlist, Wes? Because a lot of countries have mandatory service. Our nation does not. You volunteer to wear the uniform, and it's the highest honor many people do in their lifetime. What was your motivation in enlisting?
Well, a lot of it was financial, to be honest with you. I was in junior ROTC in high school for 3 years. Really loved it. The regular Army guy that was in charge of us was a Colonel Stewart, and he suggested that I could probably get a scholarship from the Army to pay my way through college if I did ROTC in college and then went in the Army afterwards. So I did that, I did get the scholarship, and that's was how I attended college, was on an Army scholarship. And again, the at the end of that, then they require a period of service, maximum of 4 years. NOM was kind of winding down, so they cut those times shorter as a rule. Some people only ended up doing a few months, but I enjoyed the camaraderie that we had, and looked forward as I went through the ROTC stuff and went into the Army. It was just a real privilege to wear the uniform, as you said. It was an honor. An honor to serve with the guys. Met some of the greatest guys I've ever known in the military, and look back on that time mostly with good memories.
Yeah, I think that's really instrumental. Is the experience of the service is always the people that were around us, right? You look at the military, though; it's really like better than any university. It's the hard knocks school. If you look back at your time and you look at one skill that the military taught you that's really been instrumental in your life and in your impressive career, what would that one skill be?
I truly think that what I learned about leadership in the Army was the most important thing I brought home with me. Leadership was not about me being successful. Yeah, you had the mission, you had to accomplish the mission, but it was about the people that worked for you. It was about building a team that trusted and supported each other and that you could count on. Guys you could listen to. I was telling somebody this story the other day. When I was a brand new butter bar, I had and I think of this guy like a grizzly bear, but he was the command sergeant major. And he said to me, he gave me two pieces of advice. He said it was the best advice he could give me. Number one was stay out of Vietnam, which is what they called Fayetteville, which is right outside of Bragg. Uh-huh. And number two was find me a good sergeant and listen to him. And I did both of those things pretty much. And they were, especially the part about the sergeant, was great. Those guys had a lot more experience. I had the rank, they had the experience, and listening to them, and again, building that team that I could trust, and they learned they could trust me. That's just a core part of a leader today as a CISO or whatever job you have. If you're trying to lead a team, it's not being the boss. It's being the leader, and that means taking care of your people, means getting the mission done, and actually taking care of your upline, taking care of your command structure.
Indeed. You know, you talk about leadership, and it's one way a lot of us view our country as a leader. But when you look at it and you think of our great nation, and you think of America, what does America symbolize for you?
America is all about freedom, the flag, God. We were, founded on, and I know people want to argue this, but I absolutely believe we were founded on Judeo-Christian principles. And while we adhered to that, we became a great country. We've backed off from that to a large degree today, and I think that's a big part of our, while we're not quite the leader country that we really have always been and should be again.
Yeah, there's, the one thing, I constantly hear when we talk about this country is opportunity. What you just described is the epitome of something very interesting. I was listening to Bill Maher just this morning before we recorded, and he was traveling somewhere, and he said his cab driver was an American of Bosnian descent who left Bosnia before the war there almost 20 years ago and then came to this country. And he's now an American citizen, and he drives a cab. And he asked, and he got into a conversation with him, and he goes, I know what the other side looks like, and there's no way I'd ever let this country get there. but some of the rhetoric is very similar to what we saw back then. I think the one thing we all need to realize, though, is that America has no one shape or color. America is a melting pot of all kinds of culture. That's how it was from its very inception, right? It was Dutch, Spanish, British, Irish, Italians.
Yep.
You know, it was never just one group of people. If you look at, go ahead, please, Wes.
I was going to say, you know, and I think if you look at the military, you see a lot of that. You know, I served with guys from, I mean, every group of people almost you could think about, and you learned you got more in common than you don't, and as long as you've got the same objectives and you're headed the same way, you know, you help each other and you support each other, and you realize you're building on common ground.
Yeah, I think the one thing I would point out is what we're going through now is a small faction that's trying to turn on a bigger faction into a faction war. But what it really is a small group of people. Because in the military, if you look at any of our unit pictures, no one, I mean, we had every single race, background, and creed in our units, and no one ever, did that. So absolutely. If you look at, you know, one key takeaway from your transition at the end of your service, what would that be? Well,
coming out of the, you know, I work with a lot of vets. Needling has a lot of vets that work with us and for us, and most of those guys were, you know, like communications people. Information security wasn't really a thing, but some of them were IT people, and some were communication signal corps guys. Coming out of the infantry, unless you are going to translate into law enforcement, you know, there's really not a lot of way to map those skills. But the leadership role and the ability to communicate, those two characteristics, I think, served me well as I moved into. I went to work for IBM, worked for IBM for a lot of years, and then started my own company and ended up, again, like we were talking earlier, at the revenue department. But those skills, communications, leadership, relationship, those types of things that I really kind of learned in the Army, that really was what I brought home from the Army that helped me be successful in civilian life.
Indeed. And as we wrap up, you kind of mentioned this a little bit ago, but I want to ask you to just talk about one thing you loved about your military service.
It was the people, basically. I have been all over the world, and as a civilian, I working for IBM, have my own company, and like you, I've traveled extensively. This is a great country, and it is made up of great people. The folks I knew in the Army were some of the best people I ever met, because they were willing to lay it on the line, and they were willing to you know. Today they say watch your six. We didn't say that back in the old days, but
right.
You know, they had your back, and you knew they had your back. You didn't have to worry about it. And having that kind of friendship and that kind of camaraderie, it was an amazing thing, and it really is probably the only thing. I don't miss sleeping in the dirt. I don't miss the bad coffee. I don't miss, you know, all those types of things. But I do miss the people. I miss the camaraderie.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. That is one thing I desperately miss, is the camaraderie. And I miss the dirt and the coffee and the MREs every now and then. There was something special about the moments where you know, you sat and you kind of all, you know, MREs were essentially trade baskets. Different snacks and different boxes had different value. We had our own little barter system going on. But you know, if you got a good MRE, man, you were set.
James, back in my day with C's, it was fruit cocktail. If you got a can of fruit cocktail, you struck gold, because you could trade that for almost anything. And that really was good. I mean, you know, you think about that, but it was sweet and wet, and it was so good. And literally, if you were willing to part with it, you could get almost anything you could think of from the folks out there. That was such a choice item when you landed that one.
That lets people know when you enlist in the service, you're definitely not doing it for any other reason. Because of that. Wes, thank you so much for your service, and thank you for coming on Veteran November. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you, James. Appreciate you, buddy.
Folks, here's another episode of Veteran November. Again, every single day, 2 p.m. Eastern, you'll get another veteran story here. Please make sure to tune in, and thank you in the comments, a big like, and subscribe. Till next time, have a great rest of your day wherever you're tuning in from, and God bless the United States of America.
Amen.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening